discussing the issues that make Phoenix a world-class city. Now, On the Issues.
Welcome to On the Issues. I'm Vice Mayor Jim Waring, and joining me today will be City of Phoenix Budget and Research Director Mario Paniagua. We're in a very interesting situation here in the City of Phoenix. We just had one of the longer council meetings, probably on record, April 30th, with a long discussion about the budget and labor contracts. We're moving forward. As I tape this, it's May 2nd. Since that meeting on April 30th, the City Manager, Ed Zuercher, has come out with another budget. People maybe remember he produced a budget that had a lot of cuts in services and so forth a few weeks ago. We've had 2 meetings in our district now, and as well as I think about 30 meetings citywide to discuss this issue with residents. And now we're moving forward. The City Manager has produced another budget last night, Thursday, May 1st, and there's been much discussion about it. I thought it would be timely to have our budget director on to discuss that, the revenue projections, how we got here, and where we go from here. So, on May 7th, we will have another council meeting expected to be heavily attended, probably one of the more interesting meetings that we've had in perhaps, certainly my tenure on the council, but certainly in recent times, as we discuss potentially imposing cuts on police and accepting a cut on the fire department in terms of salary and benefits. I personally will be voting against it, but we are in a situation where the groups have not agreed, or at least the police have not agreed. So going forward, the council will have to impose action. There's talk about bringing back the food tax. Certainly in this budget, they are planning on raising taxes and fees to the tune of about $11 million. And I think some of these issues deserve to be fleshed out more. So to that end, we're going to have Mario Paniagua, our budget director, as I said, will be our guest, and we're going to come back in just a moment.
How you doing? My name's Steve. My family's lived in this neighborhood for years. Recently, things got so tight, we had to go to our local food bank for help. I lost a lot of sleep worrying about what the neighbors might think. That is until I saw them there, too. How'd I do, Steve?
A little stiff. You could have done a little better.
What? Come on. You know, I have an Academy Award.
Yeah, but not for playing me.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
Mario, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I know this is probably your busiest time of the year. You're like an accountant the first couple weeks of April. So we really appreciate you taking the time. I know you got a big labor meeting today, so we'll get right to it. Can you talk a little bit about the budget process as currently constituted in the city and what led us up to this point?
Yes, thank you very much, Vice Mayor, for the opportunity to be here and talk about the budget. The budget process we're in, we're a little ways through our community budget process. As you recall, we started back in March with our city manager's trial budget. And that trial budget was presented as an initial draft for a balanced budget for 2014-15, which allowed the community to engage in a discussion. We took that budget out to more than 20 budget hearings across the city and in all districts of the city, and heard feedback from the community. And
I'll interrupt right there. People get confused. They assume those are recommendations that come from the city council. And actually it's the other way around. The city manager, who the city council hires, we just hired Mr. Zuercher very recently, he works with you to craft a budget that balances. We have to have a balanced budget. We're different than the feds who can print their own money and raise taxes and cut taxes and increase spending and so forth. You know, we have to make the books balance. So your job is to present an option. We take that option out to the public and also make our own choices. And then going forward, to my mind, that's when we get into the real budget meat. So we had a trial budget, and it's not something that people were necessarily recommending. It's just sort of a floater. People put something out there, namely the city staff, and then we take it from there.
That's absolutely right. That's a very important point. Two important points you said. One was it's not final, but two is it's the city manager, the staff's presented budget. Ultimately, it's the city council that makes the final decision. But as we engage in this process, it's the city manager's budget that we're actually talking about at this point. And so it's something that we're obtaining community feedback on, but it's also something that the council is taking time to review, asking questions about, getting more information, and then hearing from the public about the proposal.
How much feedback have we had this time around compared to, say, last year when there wasn't a budget deficit and very few people showed up for the budget hearings?
Well, when we talk about potential cuts and we're talking about solving a deficit, we do see more people out at those community budget hearings, people whose services might be impacted. And so we've seen, we've had comments from about 1,700 people total, and that's including the budget hearings as well as emails that we've been receiving.
I want to say last year was about 500 and something, so it's about triple what it was.
Exactly, it's about triple what it was last year.
Still a very small percentage. Obviously we have a population of 1.6 million. Now some of those would be little kids and so forth, probably not going to go to budget hearings and comment, although some did, frankly. I think last year I had the record high. I had 13 people show up at one of my budget hearings. I did, I think, 3. This year we had 350. I did a joint one with Mr. Gates, and we had 350 people. So it's a little bit different level of interest. Still, unfortunately, it's a small percentage of our population that participates. But what have you seen with the comments? I mean, last year I know Bike Pass was a big deal. There was sort of a large percentage of the people who turned out were talking about Bike Pass. This year it was no cuts, obviously. Anything else interesting come out of those hearings?
Yeah, interestingly, we had the people that were advocating for more bike infrastructure as well, and so they were at the hearings. But by and large, overall, it was people mainly concerned with protecting the services that we provide. At community centers that were proposed as a potential service cut. There was a lot of talk about senior centers and protecting those. Other cuts in the police department, like to central booking and to fire prevention, those important services. People really focused on protecting those and making sure that those were not cut. By and large, that's really what we heard about at those hearings.
Now, you started to talk earlier about the process before I so rudely interjected myself to talk about the reasons for the process. So now we've had the community hearings.
Yes.
Mr. Zuercher, as of last night, we're taping this on May 2nd, so on May 1st he put out another budget, so perhaps by the time people see this on tape, they will have had a sense of what Mr. Zuercher's new proposal entails. You want to talk about that a little bit in case people missed it?
Absolutely. So the revised budget really responds to that community input about protecting services. What also has changed since the trial budget came out is we're able to recognize that there's been some progress in our labor negotiations. That trial budget assumed the continuation of the existing costs for employees, and so based on the current contracts. But we acknowledged at the time that the labor contract negotiations for next year for contracts that are beginning in July was in progress. We've been able to come to agreements with not all, but most of the city's unions, and those agreements reflect employee pay concessions of 1.6%, reductions in total compensation of 1.6% in 2014 and 15, and then in the second year of the contracts, another concession of 0.9%. So with those, in addition to assumptions that we're able to make about some potential revenue ideas, we're able to propose a balanced budget that does not include cuts in services to the community, but rather through the city manager's been very clear about shared sacrifices, saving city services, and being able to kind of spread the pain a little bit across various areas.
You talk about the revenue enhancements, fee increases, tax increases.
Yes.
Several were proposed. Can you talk about what's, and frankly, I'll just tell you, I'm against raising fees. I think given how we spend some of our money, I have to be against it. But I am curious if you could highlight for our listeners, so what are we talking about increasing?
So a total of $11 million for the general fund, which is about 1% of the revenue that we're seeing right now. And so it would be additional revenue. Most of it comes from an excise tax that would be collected based on, through the water bills. It's not a water utility tax, but it's an excise tax that goes to the general fund.
It would be on the water bill,
and it's on the water bill.
It wouldn't actually go to the utilities.
Right.
It would go to the general fund.
Right. It uses the water bill as a mechanism for collection. So it's an efficient way for us to do that without having to add any other costs. But it would be $1.50 per month for residential customers.
And you said that would raise how much for the city?
That raises about $9.5 million.
So 9.5 of the 11 million.
Of the 11 million.
And I frankly, again, I'll tell you now, so you're prepared, I won't be supporting that proposal. But it sounds like it's the bulk of what we're talking about.
That's correct.
And then there are a few smaller fees.
Right. So recreation passes at community centers, senior centers passes, those are annual passes that would go up by about $10 per pass. Some athletic fields, so the teams that use the athletic fields and the rates, those would go up by about $2 for our residents. And then
are these teams of kids or adults or both?
Both, right. And then the other one is.
And we've always charged them? Is that the way it's always worked?
Yes, The one charge that's new is the lighting for the athletic field, so a new field for the cost of lighting to offset that. And then the final fee is parking meters, and so it's really a change to the way that the city does parking meter collections, and it would make it a demand-based pricing system. So when you come downtown, if there's a special event in a particular area of downtown, we might be able to charge more at those spots than we would, say, in the middle of the day, in the afternoon at a spot where there's not much going on.
When it's 110.
110.
I understand, yes.
Yeah, so 50 cents at the spot where there's nothing going on, but maybe $5 at the spot across from Chase Field when there's a game that night.
So the new parking meters, we have new solar-powered, right? Parking meters that take credit cards.
Use
and
credit
everything.
cards.
So they are able to adjust. Is that part of the function?
That's
of the
right.
meters?
The new technology allows us to do those adjustments in pricing based on what the spot that it's at, the time of day, or if there's a special event going on.
There was talk about adding those meters at the parks, Echo Canyon and others. Is that now off the table?
It's something I think that the city will continue to take a look at, but it's not part of what we're proposing in this package.
This was a big deal at the parks. I'm on the parks subcommittee, and
Yes.
we had some citizens who were vehemently opposed to it, and I also questioned whether it was a great idea. What I do think we should be doing, just as an editorial aside, the old parking meters with the coins, I'm sure everybody's had the same experience I have, where you get a little frustrated, you don't have the correct change, and you're concerned your meter's gonna run out and so forth. With the credit cards, the new machines, we found that people generally just put in the max. You're limited by how much change you have in your car, but you're not limited on the credit card, so if you can take up to 2 hours, then you do 2 hours. We can also work on having that roll over, get a warning on your phone, hey, do you want to re-up so you don't get a ticket. I'd rather see us replace those old meters because we haven't done most of the city yet, which actually might increase revenue more than putting the meters at parks and stuff, which, again, hits families and, is more of an irritant, I think, than a revenue generator. So I'm happy to see that sounds like off the table for now. So you raised the 11 million. You illustrated, I think, all 11 million, correct, with the different fees and everything.
Right, those are the fees and taxes that make up the new $11 million that we're talking about. Those pay concessions total in the general fund about $16.5 million. So that really gets us the bulk of the way to solving our deficit from where we were. We had already talked about efficiencies and changes in the costs of delivering the services that we deliver without impacting the services to the public. So all of that together helps us solve this issue this year as we head into the 2014-15 budget.
Now I keep repeating so people know, this is May 2nd. So we had
Correct.
a very long meeting, as I suggested earlier, on April 30th. A lot of the labor groups, primarily police, but also others, came down. During that meeting, I voted against it, but one of the labor groups who had agreed, LIUNA, I think it was, they had agreed, and their labor group agreed to take the concessions. So we voted on that contract, and it passed 6-3. I think Councilman DeCiccio, Gates, and myself voted no on that contract. It's still got some of the spiking, and it's still got the merit increases and so forth. But that's only one of the 5 major labor groups. So we still have 4 outstanding. We have another meeting coming up, and I believe it's May 7th, with police and fire. Fire has agreed to the concessions. Police has not, and that was why the meeting was so long. April 30th, it was in the paper. There was a lot of publicity because there's a lot of officers, and frankly, they did an excellent job of presenting their case. What can we expect May 7th?
Well, I think more
because we're building a budget based on
right.
the idea that that's all going to pass.
Right.
And I, just being one of the 9, I won't vote to cut police or fire, and I have concerns about the other contracts. So I'm likely voting no. So take me out of it. There are 8 other members. Yeah. We're in uncharted territory here.
We are.
Correct? We have not gotten to this point as a city with disagreement with one of the labor groups, particularly one of the high-profile major ones, the police. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, it is unprecedented, and it's interesting the timing, the way the timing is working out.
Well, and I should have been clear. At this point, we're at an impasse. So the council on Wednesday, May 7th, will be voting to impose cuts. Again, I won't, but the rest of the council will be voting to impose cuts. This isn't a negotiated deal at this point. Is that a fair analysis?
Right. For those units that don't come to an agreement, that's what has to happen, is that the council has to actually impose the terms and conditions for the labor contracts.
Right. And that has not happened before in the city of Phoenix.
Not that I. Not
members don't vote to impose these cuts. You've got a budget built around it. Your job, Mr. Zuercher's job, is to build a budget. I guess then we've kind of put you in a spot. Where do we go from there?
Well, one of the things that we explained in this proposed budget that came out last night is that this is how we're proposing that the budget be balanced. However, if changes are made to that, so if there's less revenue that the council decides to implement, or if there are less that come out of the employee pay concessions, then we need to start looking again at those service reductions, because that's really the other way that we can reduce costs to make sure that we have a balanced budget. Ultimately, we have to have that balanced budget, and so we can only cover expenses for what we have revenue to do. And so if that revenue is not there and the expenses haven't come down, then we need to find another way to reduce those expenses, and that's where we would have to, unfortunately, go back to looking at those service reductions to the community.
Okay. Now, what's the deadline for all this? New fiscal year starts, I guess, midnight July 1. What kind of time frame are we looking at?
So you mentioned the May 7th date, which is really the deadline for those contracts. Then May 20th is really the date that we have to have an action from the council on the budget. And so we're going to be presenting this budget on May 6th, Tuesday, May 6th, just to talk about it and further discuss it, then the action on May 7th. But on May 20th is when we would get an action from the City Council. At that point, that gives us what we need, the direction to go ahead and prepare all the legal documents and publications that are needed to go through the final steps of adopting the budget in June.
So we're in uncharted territory, but it doesn't sound like it's hopeless just yet. We have to have a budget. You know, I guess I would say we're taking this right down to the wire.
Yes.
There was a lot of scuttlebutt again, so this would have been May 1st. I gave an interview to a reporter yesterday who was telling me how, I think I had heard that from Mr. Zerker. We were talking about how there's a potential for the food tax to come back. 5 members could put it on the ballot for November. Apparently there's still time to do that. I'm just curious, I think the legislature went through this a few years ago with the 1% sales tax increase that Governor Brewer had proposed, and there was a delay, it wasn't on the ballot, and then members did vote for it, and I think they crafted a 2-tiered budget. These cuts would happen if it didn't pass in whatever the day of the election was, and I think it might have been in May, and then this is the budget if it does pass, and they had an extra, you know, $750 to $1 billion in revenue. Is that something, if members come, and I don't know if this is going to happen, and I wouldn't be supportive of bringing back the food tax, but if 5 members did put something on the ballot, could a budget be crafted around that maybe would alleviate the need for some of these fees or some of these labor cuts that we talked about earlier? Is that possible?
It's possible, and we could find a way to do that, but it certainly makes it a lot more difficult to
because I think some members are going to come under pressure, of course, not to cut the police, like I've already pledged not to, but the members who might still be up in the air about it, I think you know, there is some impetus perhaps to try to raise revenue bigger than what's been talked about before. But you're saying that's a realistic possibility?
Well, one of the challenges that it presents is that, like you said, if there's a kind of a second tier budget, that if something like that didn't pass, if a food tax was put on for a ballot and a budget was based on that revenue being there, that exacerbates the level of cuts that would have to be taken. Because now you're only
for the fiscal year,
in the second half, you're not talking about a full year anymore.
Right.
So that really presents a huge challenge.
So in some ways, that plan, for those who might advocate for it, isn't necessarily a great idea, because you could really be hurting the same groups you're trying to help more that second half of fiscal 2015, which would basically be the period between January and June of 2015. You know, that would be a disastrous situation, because you're really condensing now the cuts. If a food tax were to fail at the ballot, which I would say maybe is a 50-50 proposition, I don't think anybody knows how that would turn out.
There's considerable risk with that.
Yes, well, exactly. I guess if you wanted to spend the revenue at the state, I guess that situation worked out okay, but there are no guarantees, of course, in this. So, well, it's a very interesting situation. I'm sure you're glad. How long, I forget, you've been the budget director. We've had you on the show before, and you've talked about this, so we appreciate you coming on again.
About 3.5 years.
I was going to say, so this would be your 4th budget?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you haven't seen one probably this interesting. You came in after the cuts in 2008, 2009, and 2010. Food tax was already in place, so you didn't have to deal with that. So you've had interesting challenges this year. Can we talk a little bit about the revenue projections? Have been much discussed at council meetings and so forth. Our revenue projections were high, and I understand being an economist is an extremely inexact science. Yes. Can you tell us what went into really the thinking about why our numbers were a little higher than other cities, and what we're doing in the future, because that did put, I think, things in a little bit of a box going forward. So.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. There, admittedly, those projections were a little more optimistic than they actually turned out to. Looking back, we know that they were more optimistic than reality
It's
held.
easy to be an armchair quarterback. So we understand
So-
that you were doing this
Yes.
prospectively, and now it's
Yeah, and
retrospectively.
there were a couple things that did change since we put those revenue projections in place. So the food tax is one of those things that came, the change and the reduction in the food tax came after those projections were put in place. So the higher level that we talked about was based on a full 2% of the food tax for the whole year. And that, as we know, that changed. We had a plan to do that. There were some other changes that the legislature made that impacted city revenue, and whether those are not saying whether it was good or not.
It's not. We're not back to
Right.
the time of negative growth, which is a disaster in any economy. But
So-
but we're still at like 3%, 3.5%. Is that fair?
Right, right. So we are growing, and so that's
Which is good,
that's
steady
a good
growth.
thing.
It's not a perfect economy. We understand that people are still out there hurting, but we definitely are also aware that this is not the disastrous situation that was faced a few years ago.
Right.
So going forward, I think we're projecting 3%
And looking into
for next year.
To next year, we're 3% growth off of our current revenue, and then the additional revenue would add on top of that.
No pressure. I feel like a coach telling a player, now it's the fourth quarter, don't fumble. But we've got the 3%. If we don't hit it next year, you've already kind of used the revenue increase options that are available. I've talked to Ed Zerker about this. You'd already have labor contracts, so unless they went back and accepted more concessions, which I think given the reaction this year is extremely unlikely, then you really would be talking about service cuts. So hopefully the economy holds. Hopefully we continue to get the good steady growth or better. But I've always been concerned more about next fiscal year, and I think the city manager is, in some sense, obviously he's got an immediate problem to deal with. Sure. But going forward, we just need to get our fiscal house in order. The Republic has talked about that, about a potential structural deficit problem. I've talked about things we spend money on that are a source of frustration. They came up at the last council meeting, but obviously I've yammered on certainly about that in the past as well. And so hopefully going forward, we can get ourselves in a situation where we're not talking about cutting police and fire in a growth economy. I think that's really the crux of this frustration. Absolutely. Is that we're not 277 million in the hole. Nobody's seeing everybody being laid off. It's not a world cataclysm now. This is really a problem that's centralized strictly to Phoenix and not really so much the surrounding areas or the rest of the world. And so we're really concerned going forward. Hopefully we'll continue to see progress. Hopefully this will be a good learning experience and a wake-up call for us. Hopefully there won't be a need for large tax increases. It sounds like the bulk of the council might vote for some smaller measures, the 11 million you talked about. I'm not happy about it, but I understand I'm in the minority in the council on that. But it's also probably not a deal breaker for the economy as a whole. But hopefully going forward, we won't be in this situation next year. And I'm not sure what other revenue increases would even be available at that point. So, I appreciate all your work. We know that you're taking time out of an extremely busy schedule. I know you have to run off to labor negotiations right now. That sounds like a lot of fun. I don't envy your task this afternoon. Whatever I'm doing this afternoon has got to be better than what you're doing. We really appreciate you taking the time, coming down, and all your hard work. I know it's really stressful. We are having a meeting, I believe it's May 13th, to talk about this new budget.
Yes.
Most of the council offices, and the mayor goes to a whole bunch of them, but the council offices usually do 2 in their district. We did one with Mr. Gates that I said was heavily attended. We did one up at the Tremonto Fire Station. But I always believe we should do another one when we're talking about what I consider more the real budget. As you suggested, the deadline is coming up. So at Paradise Valley Community Center, I believe it's 6 p.m. on May 13th. Certainly if you're on our email list or watching at home, if you want to call our office at 602-262-7445. I believe you and I are going to go out there and we'll answer questions about this new budget and take questions, comments, or as Senator McCain likes to say, insults. We'll take it all, but or at least direct the insults to me, not Mario. Yeah. But we will certainly be there to answer questions, flesh this out. But I hope this show helped people understand kind of where we are in the process and where we are going forward. So thank you again, Mario.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
We'll kick you loose and go off and negotiate the budget. And thank you very much for, again, tuning in. We really appreciate your interest. And if you have any questions or comments, please call my office at 602-262-7445 or visit my website at phoenix.gov/District 2. And we hope to see you next time on The Issues.